at 92.1 AFM, we've got one of our candidates who's going for the state election, David Lee Doody. Good morning, David. How are you?
G'day, Mark. Good, thank you very much. Glad, very happy to talk to you.
Okay, tell us a little bit about yourself and what's your story?
Well, I'm married. I have 6 adult children. I live at Corcoran. I'm self-employed. My company, of which I'm the sole director and shareholder, is a member of the Australian Wool Exchange, and I sell my clients wool at the wool sales in Melbourne. I deal with my client base is entirely wool growers, they being farmers, of course. A lot of them are irrigation farmers. I'm actually from a farm background as well. So I'm very conscious of agricultural issues because they affect my business, and I understand that they affect not only my business but everyone's business in these agricultural economies. And our economy is not only agriculture, it's also an irrigation influenced economy as well. So I'm very aware of the difficulties and the good things that affect my client base, and irrigation is one of them. And at the moment, the irrigation industry, irrigation farming, is being suppressed. It's being closed down in New South Wales and Victoria and South Australia, and that affects my clients. It affects their wool production, not only wool production, of course, but all sorts of agricultural production, rice, cotton, all sorts of pastures, dairies. So it affects all those things, and in particular, specifically with myself, with wool production, which affects my business. And of course, my business and all other businesses in this area are very interrelated. We all share the wealth around. So what happens with the base of that wealth, which is agricultural production, if that goes into negative growth or into decline, so do our businesses. And when I say businesses, it's not just a business, it's our livelihood, jobs, employment. And if these things decline, of course, people cannot find a job in the local area. They leave, there's population decline, there's social decline in that the population isn't there to play football or cricket or basketball or whatever they want to do, or tennis, and these clubs and associations and so forth decline in numbers and eventually may even close entirely. And it all starts, the start of that decline is the decline in wealth production, and that's being caused by the New South Wales government in this area, and that's very, very bad, and we have to find a solution to it. Otherwise, we are in a very, very dire situation, very dire, and I just cannot stress that enough. The New South Wales government is acting in a very destructive manner, destructive of our livelihoods, destructive of the wealth production in these areas, destructive of the jobs, and destructive of the social conditions, the clubs and different groups that are in towns, and ultimately destructive of we can't live here if the New South Wales government continues on its path that it's doing, particularly with the basin plan, most obviously with the basin plan. There won't be any water taken out of the rivers in the future if the New South Wales government continues the way they are. At the moment, we've got the basin plan, which is the most destructive legislation that people in this area, in the irrigation areas, have ever suffered under. So that's here at the moment, but this suppression and closing of these industries won't end with the basin plan. Once the basin plan is filled in full and on time, as various politicians, such as the National Party, often say, when that's filled in full and on time, that won't be the end of it. There'll be another reason, another crisis, another climate change event or whatever it's disguised as to take more water out of the area, out of the rivers, out of productive use, and eventually there will be no water. There won't be any water for not only rice or cotton, there won't be any water for permanent planting such as almonds, grapevines and so forth. High security water will be circumvented somehow. There won't be any high security water either. The only water that will be taken out is a minimum stock and domestic amount. And with that quantity of water, of course, our local economies will decline by some huge percentage, and so will the population, so will the jobs, so will the people. It's a very dire situation.
Yeah, it is, definitely.
It absolutely is. It's disastrous, and I'm advocating. Well, I'll just go back a little step. Look, I've been like a lot of other people and attended various meetings and so forth, and public meetings with government officials and all this sort of thing. And industry grower representatives and local industry representatives make all sorts of presentations to government, and they're right. Our representatives are right. The government is absolutely wrong. The claims that they make about so-called environmental defects and effects and all this sort of thing have been rebutted over and over and over again, but it hasn't changed the actions of the government. So over time, I'm a little bit slow, but I eventually do learn. I realise that these problems are not environmental problems. The government and politicians present them as environmental problems, but they're not. They're actually, what we have is a political problem. And the political problem is that in New South Wales, 76% of the population and politicians are concentrated in the Newcastle, Sydney and Wollongong areas. Now, that's not necessarily bad, but it's a concern. It's a massive concentration in that small area. Their economies are very, very different to here. We are an agricultural-based economy. They are not. Water is very, very important here as far as wealth production goes. Over there, nowhere near as much. So it's not necessarily bad, but it's a concern. But what is bad is that within that concentration, there are, in the last state election in 2019, 435,400 people voted for the Greens. Now, the Greens are a political party that is officially opposed to all water extractions from all the rivers. They are officially opposed to all native timber harvesting. They're officially opposed in varying degrees to all agricultural practices. Now, that is a problem because there's only a total of 398,000 voters total west of the Great Dividing Range, in the 8 electorates west of the Great Dividing Range. There's more people in New South Wales, mostly in Newcastle, Sydney, Wollongong and the North Coast, who vote for the Greens, who are officially opposed to the industries that our livelihoods depend on. So now that is a problem. And also within that concentrated population in Newcastle, Sydney, Wollongong, there's a lot of people who vote Liberal or Labor who are also very sympathetic to so-called environmental claims and those sort of things. So the problem we have that if any politician in New South Wales wants to get elected, he or she has to follow the green line. If they don't follow the green line in Newcastle, Sydney and Wollongong, they won't be elected. And his or her political party, whether it's Liberal Party or Labor Party, it doesn't matter, that party will not form government. They must follow the green line. Now, the green line, unfortunately, means that the timber industry, native timber harvesting and all agricultural practices will be negatively affected. And that is a problem for us. Now, to find a solution to our problem within New South Wales, politically, for the political problem, is actually impossible. Because the numbers, if you go to the New South Wales Parliament, there's 93 members of the Legislative Assembly. We can elect whoever we like, even if they're on our side, and they can go to the New South Wales Parliament and make the best speech the Parliament of New South Wales has ever heard. But when it comes to a vote, and we being in a democracy, that one vote against the concentrated population of politicians in Newcastle, Sydney and Wollongong that must toe the green line, they must follow that line, we cannot affect any outcomes at all. And the effect of that will be that, and as I said before, the water will continue to be taken out of productive use. There will be no, and I'm repeating myself a little bit here, but there will be no water taken out of any rivers for any productive purposes. So that's where New South Wales is going, and we can't stop that while we're in New South Wales. Now, I am proposing that the Riverina, which is basically the 8 electorates west of the Great Dividing Range, might even be a bigger area than that, but also there's a lot of interest in Victoria as well, which isn't surprising. So the Riverina might eventually even extend into northern Victoria, but that's in the future. But I'm proposing that the 8 electorates, the Riverina, west of the Great Dividing Range, including all the water infrastructure such as Hume, Dartmouth, Lowering, and in Victoria, Eildon and Dartmouth, all become a Riverina state, separate from New South Wales and eventually separate from Victoria as well, but I'll just stick to New South Wales at the moment. Now, that Riverina state has defined in certain rights in the Australian Constitution, and one of those rights is the authority over the water within that area, the entire authority over the water in that area. And actually, and all, not constitutional rights, but all management of all natural resources within that area. So, and of course, within that area, the water is in that area. I mean, our water is not in Sydney, Newcastle or Wollongong. The water that we use is in the Riverina, and that water will be within that Riverina state. And that water will be used responsibly, efficiently and beneficially for the people in the Riverina, and that will be a much different management outcomes than what we have at the moment. There won't be a decline in water use, there will be an increase in water use. There will be an increase in wealth production through irrigation, whether that's cotton, rice, all sorts of pastures or dairy production. There will be increases in all that wealth production. There will be an associated increase in jobs and employment, because as soon as to produce that wealth, people have to be employed to do that. You've got to have all sorts of machinery operators, mechanics, all sorts of suppliers, fuel suppliers, all sorts of material. We can all just see that. That is all jobs for this local area. This area, the Riverina, has the potential to boom economically, absolutely boom. And we won't have a population loss, we will actually have a population increase. So the benefits for us as a Riverina state are immense, and compared to the outcome if we stay part of New South Wales, where it will be decline and degradation, it's just you've got one end of the spectrum compared to the other, and the Riverina state end is the much better, infinitely better for us. So that's what I'm proposing, Mark, as a candidate, that the Riverina separates from New South Wales. It is absolutely essential that this happens. If the electorate of Murray elects any other candidate, whether it's the incumbent or the National Party candidate, that will only ensure that this degradation continues. Absolutely. There's only one solution, and any other solution, there's no other solution. Any other action will ensure that the water continues to leave the area, the jobs, the employment continue to leave the area, and ultimately the people continue to leave the area.
Yep. And yeah, I just want to wish you all the best of luck on Saturday, and hopefully everything goes well for you. And
well, thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. But look, it requires a bit of courage on the part of the voters and the electorate to break the habits of years and years and years and even generations to say, look, no, maybe I voted for this particular party or this particular candidate for so long before, but it has to change, and that requires some courage. And also it requires some courage to step out as a Riverina state. But we are very, very capable of governing ourselves. We don't need the population of the urban population of Newcastle, Sydney and Wollongong with that huge green voting fraction. We don't need them governing us, Mark. We can govern ourselves very well, and we'll govern ourselves much, much better without that malign influence that comes from that area. So I thank you for your good wishes, Mark, but I just ask voters out there to vote number 1, not number 2. We have an optional preferential system. Voters only have to nominate one candidate, but I do recommend that voters use that preferential system and nominate, well, even every candidate on the card, starting with David Landini, number 1, and then working along to your next preference. So I recommend that voters do use that preferential voting system. But David Landini, number 1, is the only solution. The other candidates, whether they're personally nice people or you like their party or for whatever reason, it will ensure a continuation of the degradation of this area. So it requires a bit of courage, Mark, but I'm just asking people, voters, to be brave and have confidence in themselves and the people in the Riverina that we can actually manage ourselves very, very well. And just to have that belief in ourselves. So I just ask that the electors be brave, to have that confidence.
Yep. Okay, thank you for your time, David, and yeah, good chatting with you, and yeah, I hope everything goes good for you.
Thank you, Mark, and I hope it goes good for everyone in the Riverina because it's very, very important.
Yep, definitely. All right, thank you.
Okay, I'll see you later, Mark.
Bye.
Bye.